The Dr. Melissa Show and the Stories That Shape Us is sponsored by CNY Mental Health Counseling. My friend Kate is here. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
Kate is the executive director of David's Refuge, a central and western New York organization dedicated to supporting parents and guardians of children with special needs or life-threatening illnesses. Since joining in 2015, Kate has led the organization to significant growth, earning recognition as one of Central New York's best places to work from 2019 to 2023, while exceeding development goals and reducing caregiver burnout. In 2023, Kate launched Brave CNY, a coaching and consulting company dedicated to supporting leaders in their professional development, fostering positive company cultures, and driving greater outcomes. Drawing on her extensive leadership experience, Kate empowers clients to navigate challenges and unlock their full potential. Previously, Kate spent a decade with the Muscular Dystrophy Association in leadership roles. She is a 40 under 40 honoree and has completed advanced leadership and DEI training, and actively contributes to community organizations including Profound Mastermind, Women United, and the Marcellus Forward nonprofit leadership group. Kate, a SUNY Cortland alumna with a degree in communications, treasures her family, her husband Paul, and their two teens, Nathan and Leah. Her passions include nature, exercise, and fostering positivity, guided by her favorite quote from Carole King: "You've got to get up every morning with a smile on your face and show the world all the love in your heart." That is so you. I love that. So thank you so much for being here. I have been dying to ask you this question, and I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so what is the impact that learning to brew your own kombucha has had on your life?
Oh my gosh. Here I thought you were going to hit me with something really crazy. And that is kind of crazy. So, oh man, what a fun question. I do brew my own kombucha. And my last brew, I will say, I let it go way too long. This thing really cooked in my pantry.
What'd that smell like?
To the point where I can barely drink it. But man, I got to think it's doing something really good for my gut, right?
If it smells like that, it probably is doing something really good for your gut. And please share.
Or as my husband would say, maybe you just shouldn't drink it. But we know that's not an option. Yeah. So I would say the kombucha and many other things that I love to do and make from scratch and figure out how to make, doesn't it just fill your cup in many ways, because we're creative humans. So I didn't think I could do it. And then a friend of mine sent me a kombucha kit and he said, "Of course you can do this." And then I said, "Yeah, of course I can do this."
What do you mean you didn't think you could?
Don't we all say that all the time though?
Yes and no. I don't know. See, to me, from what I know about you, or the energy that you put out into the world, I think of you as one of those yes people. You're like, yeah, of course I'll try it. I don't know if it'll come out the way that I think it will or what I want it to be, but I'll certainly get after it. Sure.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Since I've been called toxically positive and relentlessly positive, so I guess that is what I'm giving out. But there are definitely things that you just don't know how to do something as simple as kombucha to all the really hard stuff we do too. Our biggest fan can be ourselves, and our biggest kind of like, no, you can't do that, is also in our heads. So I have that too. But to answer your question, kombucha is wonderful for the gut health, and it really does have great benefits. So definitely recommend.
I love it. And I love it that you make it. You're the only person in my life that I know who actually brews their own kombucha. And I always think it's just so fun.
Yeah. I mean, I get this from my mother. She brews kombucha. So when I started, again, she's like, "Oh, you know what? My SCOBY passed away. It no longer works. So I do need to start a new one." So then I learned you can break your SCOBY apart.
What I think I've offered it. You're going to have to fill us in on what the SCOBY is.
The SCOBY is a culture, an active live culture that eats the sugars from your sweet tea and ferments it. Yeah.
So that's the floater in the kombucha.
That's the big jellyfish floater. Yeah. Yes.
I love kombucha. You know I love this. So,
I should give you some of my last batch, though, and just see how much you love it. Yeah.
I'm willing to try.
Okay.
We should have brought it today.
We'll do it. We should have. It'll be good. Yeah.
But okay, so on a more serious note, not that kombucha isn't extremely serious, tell me a little bit more about how you became you. who you are today. You give so much back in the community. I know you're incredibly connected to your family and incredibly connected to yourself. What would you say if you had to put your finger on something? And I know it's impossible nearly to narrow it down to one thing, but what's a lesson that you learned or a story that you have to share about becoming you?
It is, like you said, just so hard to think of one thing. So I think about all of the learning moments, all of the times where I observed something that someone was doing something that really caught me. And even as a kid, I would say, like, that's just not right. And I think what I started more actively doing is working to live out my life on the other side of those moments of, I never want to be that. I never want to have a person feel the way I can see that person is feeling right now. So I think the moment I would say that started to change me was more recent than you might think, maybe within the last decade of my life, from 36 years old to today, where I started to actually see what those moments were and then make changes because of them. So for a long time, I would just observe them and be victimized by them. Like, oh, that really made me mad. And now I'm going to get defensive and mad and project even more negativity out there. What I think I started to be able to do that has been more impactful than I ever imagined is use those moments and say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to live with intention. And I'm going to actually start to act in a different way because of those moments. So it was moving from, I'm just going to think about them and be mad, to actually acting a whole different way in my life, reacting in a whole different way in my life. And I can't remember, if I really want to whittle it down, there is someone in my journey who recently did remind me that my reactions are all in my own power. And I remember saying, I just can't remember who it was, but I remember saying to them, like, why did it take this long for
like to have this aha
say
moment?
That? Or why did it take so long? And maybe someone said it and I didn't actually listen, you were ready
for that story or that lesson at that time.
Yes, right. So what do you mean I choose how I react? Wait, I do. I get to choose how I react. No one can make me mad. No one can make me scream and yell. No one can make me be judgmental. And that's what we walk around as humans saying. You made me mad. You made me so angry that I had to act this way. That's absolutely false. The power is in each of us, and I don't know why it took me that long to realize that. I wish I realized that when I was 8 years old, how different my life would be. So I think that's what it all boils down to.
Yeah, and it's possible that your life would be different, but I don't know. I mean, from what I've read, right, or witnessed working with people, a lot of times it's almost like you're actually not ready for the lesson until you are ready for it. And to your point, maybe you have heard it 1,000 times, but for whatever reason, when you were in your mid-30s, it landed for you in a completely different way. Do you remember what was going on for you at that time to maybe make you more open or receptive to learning it?
So that would have been around the time that I had just really started to get into my role at David's Refuge. And I wanted to be a different leader. I wanted to really get myself out of my own way so that I could truly show up as a leader who was there to empower the staff and the people that worked for David's Refuge, the people who showed up every day for us. And I genuinely felt like I was still reacting in a different way than I wanted to be felt, right? So that around that time, I did have a coach that came alongside me. And I'll tell you, I used to come out of coaching sessions and say, I feel like I just got beat up.
Yeah.
I would get angry at this guy. And he was doing his job. He was doing such a great job with me.
But he's poking at you.
But when you want to say, like, he was poking at me and I was giving him I was so defensive. No, you're not right. No, and I was thinking of reasons he wasn't right. And I would spend time researching why he was wrong rather than listening to what he was trying to say and learning from it. So how many times do we as humans do that? Like, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Down.
It's like, why?
Can you, I mean, so I'm like, I could give you an idea, but to me, it's a lot of it is like, it's this vulnerability, because if you're right, and that means that I need to change something, then this reality that I thought was true is something that I'm going to need to let go of. And that's maybe not something that I can actually accept right now.
Right. And then I totally agree. And the other piece that I really had to get over is that being wrong is weak. Not knowing an answer is weak. Not having an answer the second someone asks you is a weakness. And that is very, very backwards. Mm-hmm. You know, in leadership, sometimes it's the most silent responses that generate the largest differences. In being a mom and being a wife, when you just don't react, the ripple effect is so much greater.
Tell me more about that. Like, what do you see in your life?
Just even on a day-to-day basis. So one thing that I used to think also is that there were people that just had it, that people that I just looked up to that were like, they were born this way. This is how they are. They're just magical, sparkly people who just show up every day like this, and they wake up and everything's great and they inspire everyone around them. And what I came to realize is that that's completely false, right? Like, that's not a thing. Because the people I respect most, they work on it every single minute of every single day.
Yeah, and their outside is not necessarily what's happening inside.
No, never. Those things never truly match. Mm-hmm. And I guess I love that you just said that, because one of the things I'm always working on with myself and my team is how can I be the same Kate in every single situation? And that means I also have to be the same Kate inside. I can't be sitting here thinking something negative about you and then have a big smile on my face. Like, it's just, you can't get away with that. Yeah. Once or twice maybe, but you won't be an authentic person. Mm-hmm. So I guess to answer your question, it's all about really trying to match, you know, be the Kate that you want to be in every situation. So at home, you know, specifically, a lot of times I find myself the shortest with my own family, with my husband and my kids. And man, do I hate that. Mm-hmm. Because I give all of this positive energy to our community. I give all this space to people who don't know me that intimately. And then I get home and those are the people. And I'm sure this is resonating deeply with everyone. Yes,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And it rubs me the wrong way every single day almost, where I'm like, oh, why did I do that again?
I did it again. Right.
So what I've started to do is that's where I'm working the most on being intentional. Mm-hmm. And the best thing I can do a lot of times for my family is to just keep my mouth shut. And then go in the basement, maybe start folding some laundry and really thinking, why exactly is what they're doing affecting me so deeply right now? Why would I say something to the people who show up for me every day that absolutely is not going to create anything in the long term that's going to benefit any one of us? And then usually the feeling will go away. The snarky comment I wanted to make will, you know, just fizzle away and then create something very different. In the whole environment of our house, I have power over that. A lot of us as wives and moms, like, we have a lot of power. And I think it's understanding that power. So that's how I apply, I think, what I'm trying to learn. And I've learned it really well at work. I've learned it really well in the community, but it's at home where I'm still vulnerable with that and say, you know what, I need to do better there.
It also sounds like you're incredibly intentional.
Yes.
Right? Like, really reflective, really intentional, holding yourself accountable, maybe even circling back to something you mentioned just a couple minutes ago, that you can't necessarily have any like impact, influence on what happens to you or what someone says to you, but you hold yourself accountable to your own reaction. Where do you think that intentionality comes from? Like, your ability to sit with yourself, that it's safe enough to be vulnerable, that it's okay enough to be comfortable making a mistake and saying, hey, you know what, I messed up.
Yeah. A few things pop in my head when you say that. One, the very first thing is I do take care of myself. So whereas you and I were just talking about it, we have very full plates. Mm-hmm. We both have multiple companies. We have children. We have sports. We have husbands. We have all of these things. We have great friendships. But I still have non-negotiables every day for myself, because I know that's the only way that I can actually be intentional.
Yep.
So this is kind of it's all part of a bigger picture, that the walk I take in the morning outside, breathing in 30 minutes of fresh air and nature and getting my heart rate up. I have a Fitbit and I see that my heart rate's at a certain place and it has to be there for at least 60 minutes a day. That is something I do so that I don't lash out at my husband at night. And believe me, anyone who knows my husband listening, he is the most wonderful person. So he does not ever deserve
this
it.
isn't about you.
So it's like one of those things where I do those things. It's selfish for me. But the biggest piece of it is I regret every time I act in those ways.
Yeah.
Every single time. So the more and more I can prevent it, this is now back to me again. I'm doing it for me. It's going to have a positive effect on everyone around me if I don't lash out and I'm a nicer human
Totally.
But I think I'm able to be intentional because I care for myself, because I eat healthy, because I get enough sleep, because I spend enough time very intentionally with my children. And I know if I don't spend that time, a lot of other things unravel. So it's a lot of preventative medicine to be able to be the person I want to show up as.
Absolutely. It's almost like the story you started with. So in your mid-30s, witnessing people not necessarily acting in a way that you agree with, and they hurt the people that they would lash out at or be snarky with. And your empathy, I think, is so strong, right? You can see people, you can feel what they're feeling, you can take it on. And so when you see the recipient of that, you're like, I don't ever want to dole that out. Even unintentionally, I don't want to be that person. It sounds like you've held yourself so accountable to figuring out how exactly you can make sure that you aren't dishing that out in leadership roles or in parenting roles, or as a partner, you are making sure that it's like, I know that if I'm spread too thin, then I'm just more vulnerable to that. There's a much higher chance, right?
Yes, much higher chance. And another thing that I really love to live by is, and I think about it multiple times every single day, is 3 words. And I use this a lot with my coaching, because I ask people, what do you want your exit energy to be? And we try to boil it down into a series of 3 to 5 words just so you can remember them. But I really want people to think really hard about, how do you want people to feel when you leave a room? And then every interaction you have every single day, if you know that you're thinking about those 3 to 5 words and you did the best you could towards those words, then you know that you're going to live that day out, that week out, that month, that year, culminating into what you want your essence to be. And then, I walk around a cemetery every day. There's words on people's gravestones. And I think, how is it that they left this world and someone thought that much of them? Because the person that's in the ground probably didn't think of those words. It was their loved ones who said, this was the most compassionate human I've ever met. And I want to put this on their gravestone so the whole world knows that this person left this lasting impression in my life. So if we all walk around with these interactions that we have and we think about exit energy, what am I going to leave this room with these people feeling? That is a great way to set your intentionality every day. And for me, mine are that I was compassionate, that I was curious. I always want to lead with curiosity. It's like the key to not doing all the other things, not being defensive, not being too emotional, be curious. And then I want to know at the end of every day I contributed. So I call them my 3 C's.
Yeah.
I can remember them. And if I go against one of those, what it also forces me to do is I go back into that room. And I usually will say, I'm trying to be more compassionate in my life, so I want to apologize for the way I just came across. So it gives me that reason to go back, that value system to go back in on. And that's just another great way to be intentional.
That's another whole skill set, I think, in and of itself, too, is the being able to circle back.
Yeah, it's hard.
That's really hard, right? And it's not like you're going back with your tail between your legs, right? But maybe you're using the curiosity to go in with the compassion again, right? Where it's like, I'm curious about what made myself
Yeah.
do that. But I'm also curious about what did you mean, because I was just reacting in a way that doesn't line up with how I want to.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to circle back and be more compassionate. But
Right.
it takes a whole lot of guts.
It takes a whole lot of everything. And it sometimes takes more energy. But again, for me, what takes the most energy is doing it wrong.
Yes.
And laying up all night with
Feeling guilty.
with the guilt or the heartache of what I may have done to someone. So I've just learned that about myself, that I would much rather be the one that puts myself out there.
Yeah.
And usually what happens now, because you start to practice these things so often, is I'll walk back in a room and say, did I come across, I'm so sorry. And people are like, no, Kate, like you didn't come across that way at all. You came across this way. And so it's this practice of being really open with yourself and knowing that some of it's going to be story. So it's good to go in and then you're not laying up at night and saying, because you didn't offend them. But it's always good to just be human in that too and say, like, I think I did that wrong. I sidestepped there. I said that wrong. Let me try again. And it's always okay to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how did you come up with that? How did you come up with the 3 words?
So I was doing an interview, actually, and someone asked me the question of all questions, which is, what is your life's purpose, Kate? Mm-hmm. And I love the person, but that question has always really been hard for me. Yeah. I don't know how you feel about that question, but
it's so big.
It's huge.
Right? Were you able to answer in the moment?
No. And so I really just couldn't stop thinking about it, though. I think I answered in the moment some like glorious, big thing of what my life's purpose was. And then I thought that's not actually what I believe my life's purpose is. And so what I ended up doing is breaking it down. I'm a very simple person. I've told you this before. I am someone who I don't remember large level concepts. I can't cite the author of the book and the page number that I read it from. But if a concept comes through, I will not only remember it, but I will start to practice it daily in my life. So when I started to think about that, I had to really just boil it down. And that's where I came up with the 3 words. I said, if I can do this every day, every interaction. I love a woman I listened to on a TEDx once. She said, each day, each week, each month, and each year. And she was talking about living your life in a certain way. And I said, if I can do that each day, each week, I will know that I have lived out my life's purpose.
Mm-hmm. Again, it's that intentionality.
Yes.
In such a massive way, both the long term and the short term.
Right.
But you are making sure that you are living and holding yourself accountable to your own. These are, to me, they're core values. Yeah. Right. It's like, what values am I truly making decisions by? How I'm spending my time, how I am interacting with other people, what I'm dedicating, what I'm signing up for.
Yes.
Right. But it's all got to line up.
Right. Absolutely.
Otherwise, you don't sleep at night. Right.
And you have to sleep at night. Or you'll be short and hot-tempered.
Right.
I will be.
Which makes it a non-negotiable,
yes,
right?
Exactly. It doesn't go together.
Right. Absolutely. You can't do it all, right?
You can't.
But the other thing that I hear in there that's such a common thread to me is empathy. Like your heart, your ability to see people and to connect with them. Is that how you've always been? Or is that something that has changed over the course of your life?
I don't think it was how I always have been. I think that I always had a heart for helping people, for being in community with people. I would go when I was very young. I would go and volunteer at the nursing home with my mom where she worked. And I would take the day trips with the senior citizens. And I always loved making deep connections with like 1 or 2. So a woman named Joan, her and I just really connected. I think I was 13. And I remember taking her on a walk, and we were at the beach. We went to the beach, and she was in a wheelchair, and she couldn't go any further than the boardwalk at the beach. And I remember her and I just sitting at the spot where she couldn't go any further, and watching all the other people go further, and how we were both upset about that, and she was this frisky, wonderful elderly woman, and her and I were just chatting about it. And I just remember that specifically and how bad I felt that she couldn't go any further, and wanting to figure out a wheelchair that we could get for her. And we'll get you on this beach, Joan. And so that's just one story that I really remember. I told you in the beginning, I also learn a lot from the things that either other people have done or that I have done that I regret. And so I was just telling my son, who's 16, this the other day, that I remember one girl in middle school that my friend group, me included, we would put her down. Mm-hmm. And she had a big personality, and we were always just as a group, just ganging up and putting her down. And I'll never forget when we were as a group called in to the counselor's office, and we were told that, that this one girl was really hurt by what we were doing. And I'll still remember it to this day, the deep regret.
I can see it in your energy. Yeah,
now.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I just, that's how deeply I take, causing other people pain, especially when I can prevent it so easily. And it's just not necessary. And it's just, so I think I've learned just those stories and how much living with regret that you really can't create, you can't change it, necessarily. It wasn't like an opportunity. I didn't take a chance there. I wish I had, but I didn't go and apologize. We were teenagers, and I think I just kept moving and stopped what I was doing. But now I wish I could go back and all these years later and apologize or something.
Like the equivalent of you going back into the room.
Yes, right. But at that time, I didn't think about those tools.
Sure.
That wasn't a mechanism or a way that I acted in my life. It was more like, okay, I'll stop doing it, but I'm not going to go back in and try to fix. So yeah, I think it definitely comes from learning things the very, very hard way of doing the wrong thing and learning from it. And then a deep connectiveness even to family. Yeah. My other biggest regret in my life is my grandmother. She asked me, I was in college and I was at SUNY Cortland. She was in Batavia, New York. So not very close together, 3 hours apart. Mm-hmm. And she asked me to come and visit her on her birthday. And I told her I couldn't. And I really would have been difficult. I didn't have a vehicle, but she ended up passing away really shortly after that. And she spent her birthday alone. And so I still think about that moment too. And, you talk about with this amazing show, the stories that have shaped us. If someone calls me and says, Kate, can we hang out? Yes. Or at least I'll sit and talk to you, or I'll text you, or especially when people are in moments of celebration or sadness, that's when I seem to really want to come alongside people, because I think I just don't want anyone to feel forgotten, Yeah.
So, and you don't want to go through it, right? You don't want to be in a place of regret. Right, where you missed an opportunity or you let somebody down.
Right. Because connecting with people's heart and connecting with them, knowing that they have someone who actually is thinking about them, I think is probably one of the greatest, most simplest things we can do for others as human beings. Yeah.
Well, and capture that right there, right? Because I think, to me, from what I know about you and the work that you've done all throughout New York State with David's Refuge and now as a coach with Brave CNY, the ripple effects are incredibly massive, right? That as you have been able to connect with your team, with different resources and sponsorships and programs and affiliates, it's grown tremendously to really be able to have this far-reaching power. So I think that's that power too that you bring with it, where it may seem small on a day-to-day basis, that you are really truly just connecting with somebody on the phone, or they're sharing their struggle with you, but your ability to open your heart up and see that person authentically, the depth of them, what they need, create space for them. To me, that's where that power comes from, where then it spreads, and it's people don't want to miss out on that opportunity to have those genuine connections.
Yeah, I love that. And I really thank you. It speaks deeply to my soul that people are feeling that energy and that love, because that's what we need more of right now.
Right.
And I always like to just remind people that it is simple.
Yeah.
This whole thought of no, it's the whole kombucha story. No, I can't do that. I don't have time. Time is a funny thing. We all do have time.
Yep.
We all have time. We all have time to reach out to someone we love. If you think of them, text them. if you think of a human being in this moment, you're going to think of someone because you're listening, and that's what I'm saying. Whoever you just thought of, send them a quick text, write them a quick note, give them a call later. I promise you, this will change your life. It's not anything. I don't even know if it's scientific. You probably do, but it's incredible what you start to see when you just put yourself out into the universe to be a person that is genuinely thinking of others. And you'll get it back 1,000 times too. And you're not even doing it for that, but it's just a beautiful thing. And I just think it's crazy when people are like, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you write notes to people. It's like, you have time. I promise. There is. It's like, it's the making time, but it's also taking that next step. I mean, and I'm somebody, and we've talked about this too, where it's like, I'm like, oh, I meant to do that, but I totally forgot. It slipped my mind. I was distracted doing something else. And I think that that's part of it too. It's actually not just saying and recognizing that you do have the time, but it's actually making it a priority to say, hey, it's actually really important to me. Not only that they know that I was thinking about them, but that I'm extending myself out to this person. Part of it is that reciprocity, right? It comes back. It feels good to me to know that I connected with you, that we had this exchange. And even if it's a written card, it's the energy that you're putting out. Right. I mean, one of my favorite things to talk about is when you wake up every day is instead of making your to-do list, you make your to-who list. Oh. So that's pre-to-do. You lay there in bed and you have a few seconds, and instead of immediately getting on your phone and scrolling and filling your brain, be a gatekeeper of that. Keep your brain open for a few minutes. I just learned about 4-7-8 breathing. In for 4 through the nose, hold it for 7, exhale for 8. And I've been practicing that every day. And while I'm doing that, people come into my head. And it's just a beautiful thing because I'm doing something good for me. It's opening up my brain and it's shifting how my whole body feels. And then immediately I am like, 5 or 6 people will come into my head, and I just send them a quick text. So now I get to be on my phone. You get that. You get that too. You still get to be staring at your phone, which I know is what we all want to do. But you text just a couple people at the start of your day and wish them a great day. That's all.
Well, so I don't know the science about, reaching out and how that works, but I can tell you the science behind that. Part of it is that you're triggering your parasympathetic nervous system by having that exhale. So you're calming yourself down. And when you calm yourself down, you come more into that integrated place within yourself. And then when people start to enter into your thought process, it's because you've already on some level had them, marinating in there, waiting for the right time to pop in.
That's
so
right.
You're actually creating space to really prioritize who are the most important people for you to be thinking about today or reach out to today.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And the breathing in of itself is enough.
Yes, it is.
So these, again, are just going back to that whole thought I used to have. Like, oh my gosh, that Melissa, she just got it. And she wakes up like shining like a superstar every day.
Now you know me.
Every single person that you walk around with that thought process is doing a lot of work every day. Mm-hmm. They're doing a lot of work within every day to make sure that they're staying within that value system, within those guardrails. They've created guardrails, right? They've created, I went too far right, I went too far left, I got to be in the middle. Mm-hmm. They have practiced it. They have poured into having coaches that, you feel like you're getting your punching bag, because they want to hear feedback that isn't just rubber stamping all of the things that they think they're doing, which are not correct. You approach situations and you say, I know that we're great friends, Melissa, but I'd actually love you to take 10 minutes and tell me all the things I could be doing better. And really being open to it. Mm-hmm. Wanting people to say, what is your experience of me in this situation? So I think all of us are so afraid of feedback. But at the end of your life, wouldn't you love to know right now at 43 that every person you engage with feels intimidated by you? Or every time you leave a room, people feel like a tornado just hit, but no one has told you because you haven't asked. And no one believes that you could even take the feedback. Mm-hmm. But I want to think, no, we're all a lot stronger than we give ourselves credit for. You can take the feedback, you can learn from it, and you can change.
And if there's this hesitation of, I can't take it, then figure out why. I mean, that's what you
Melissa.
and I, right. I'm like, there's a reason for that, right? There's a reason for that level of defensiveness and protectedness. And it could be a very legitimate reason.
So true.
Right? That maybe you did need to protect yourself from bullies or from abuse or from, people who are incredibly critical or harsh. And so now you're afraid and you sort of shun at the idea of having any of that. Maybe you're perfectionistic and it, challenges the very success story that you have in your head.
So
and it's like there's so many reasons, but going back to curiosity, when you approach those things with curiosity and support, and that's, I know you do this in your coaching work, I do this in my coaching work, it allows people the chance to really figure out how to access those more vulnerable parts of themselves so that they can get the feedback and then ultimately grow from it.
That's right. That's right. And that's what I think about every day too. I want to grow every day.
Yeah.
I am very far from knowing my purpose on this earth. I probably will never. Maybe
it'll keep changing and
the very last
evolving.
breath, I'll have this word that comes out or something. But
what do you think that would be? What's the last word? The last breath word? Don't think too hard. This is a gut thing.
Know.
This is a kombucha gut thing.
The word experience just came out in my head.
Okay.
Like experienced. She did. Like I always want to say she
lived.
She did it. She did it. She did it. Like she experienced. She was experienced. Mm-hmm. She was seen and she saw. Like that's for me, like what we're all searching for here.
Yeah.
I want to walk and be seen. I want to see. And you have to see to be seen and all of those pieces. So when you asked that question, I second guessed it because I'm like, what the heck does experience mean?
Yeah.
But I guess that I need to think about that a little bit deeper. Yeah.
That's so cool,
The
though.
experience of the life. Yeah. What was that?
Which is really interesting because that is what I keep hearing too. It's like intentionality and you're awake, like your eyes wide open fully, your body wide open and heart wide open to like the experience, all of it, the highs, the lows, the dirty, the messy, the confusing, but the triumphs and the excitement and yeah.
Okay. There we go.
Oof. Now you have an answer. You can go back to that interviewer.
I know, and see what that actually all means, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful word. Yeah.
Tell me about the people in your life. Like, who have been the most influential people in your life?
I love this question because I always say it's about the who. You know, every situation I've ever gotten into where I feel like a door has closed or I need to get somewhere and there isn't a door or a window and now I got a sledgehammer and I'm like, I'm going to beat through the wall. That's when I always say like, no, I need a who. There is a who that I'm missing because once I find that who, the door will just appear.
Like it shouldn't be that hard.
It should not be that hard.
Yes.
It should not because we're all in this world together. I love that saying, I am not a drop of water. I am the ocean.
Ooh, yeah.
Because I feel like we all really need to think about that right now. Mm-hmm. Like we are not singular here. We are all connected and we are the ocean. So when I think about all of the who's that have made me, I mean, there's some really big ones that stand out. Obviously, my mom and dad. My mom and dad are still my biggest cheerleaders. They are the people who taught me the value of hard work. They taught me the value of deep friendship. They have deep and committed friends that they are still very connected to. They showed me how to have fun. They have a wonderful social life and always we're having fun and going on trips and doing amazing things. They raised my brother and I to be very close and we're still close to this day. So my brother is another big who in my life that I don't see very often, but he is always there. Mm-hmm. His beautiful wife, Karen, he met when they were 16 or 15. So they've been together forever and ever. So she's been a sister to me for so long. So those are my core people who I've known, I guess, the longest, you know? And then obviously I get I get to have this beautiful love story with Paul, who I met at SUNY Cortland when I was a junior there. And him and I have now been together, almost half my life, and built this beautiful life together with our 2 kids. And that whole journey has taken me in such an interesting place. My life is never what I dreamt it would be. Other who's in my life that changed the course of my life, like they opened this door over here and I was going to go the other direction. A woman named Liz at my college at SUNY Cortland, when a bunch of my roommates actually decided at one point to get a house without me. It was one of the biggest heartbreaks. It was one of those moments where I remember being in my dorm room and I threw my shoe at the wall and I was crying and I was so upset. And the very next day I went to class and I stumbled across the study abroad department at SUNY Cortland. And I just walked in and this vibrant woman named Liz was running. She was the study abroad officer there. And she was like, well, we're just going to get you all hooked up and you're going to go to Australia. And I was like, okay.
All right.
So I'm sure there were phone calls in between to my parents, but she definitely, I had never met someone like her in my life. She was just so full of energy. She was so confident. She was so supportive. She believed in me and she didn't even know me. And she just really set my life on a different course. And then when I got back, I became all these different things and leadership roles and really always stayed connected to her. So I just love thinking about her and how much she changed my life.
It's interesting too because it sounds like she became a who and a how for you, right?
Yeah,
like because
sure.
it's not just sitting there and saying like, sure, you want to go abroad, yep, let me sign you up, but it's how she approached you, the energy that she had, the excitement that she could, share with you about the opportunity that you could take doing this.
Yes, what a great way to think about that. Yes, and I mean, I guess as we apply it, right? When you want to be a who,
you're a who and a how.
You're like, you don't want to just be let me just give you a pamphlet. You want to also be the light in the path, right? And say like, I see you're in a dark area. Let me light this up for you. Yes, that's what she did. Yes. And I do hope to be that for other people. I think through Brave CNY, I get to do that. I get to do it all the time at David's Refuge too. But I think Brave CNY gives me this. It's my own thing. So I get to like kind of create, how I give the path in a different way. But yeah, thank you for saying that. That's definitely Liz.
That I feel like is you. I think you like you described yourself and the energy. So what's cool about that though is that it makes your point. Yes. And inspired you, but in such a way that you've been able to integrate into truly who you are and how you want to be in the world. Yeah. And how you want other people to feel when they're in your presence.
I love that. Yeah. And then I would say as a mom, my kids have shaped me the most. I mean, you can't literally create another human without them shaping you and continually changing you and morphing you and molding you. I can't wait to even see what grown-up Nate and Leah, how they shape their mama and like what they bring out in me. That's been the most wild ride is just being a mom.
Totally.
And I learn something from them every day. They teach me, they push me, they do all
challenge
the things.
You.
Yeah, and I know that's cliche to say, but I think a lot of times when I tell people about my kids, I say, yeah, I have a 14-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son, and they're like, they give me this like exacerbated, oh my gosh, you're in it. And I usually say to them, no, they're magical. Like they are magical people, and they're humans. They're almost adults to me already. So no, I don't look at it that way. I actually really enjoy just being with them every single day. And so I only say that because I'm so glad I get to look at it that way, because I don't want to be just exhausted by it. I think parenting has kind of got this rap in our society where it's just this thing where you have to like kind of complain about it.
Resent
right.
all the
and
things
it's like,
that you have to do.
And I get that. I'm not downing anyone who feels that way. It's the hardest thing we've ever done. But I also really try again with intentionality to not have that be the story. I saw a quote once that says, all I want my kids to ever think of me as is to say when they grow up is they had a happy mother who enjoyed life. And hopefully they'll forget all the other blips, right? That they'll just as a whole think, my mom was a happy mom who enjoyed life. Like, I really want them to think that, you know?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that the more you're able to do exactly what you're doing, right, where you really truly are taking care of yourself, then you're able to give that to them. Well, or you're doing it for yourself, but they are able to witness it.
Yes. And that's the hope. And then they are more looked at from my eyes as someone who can just be part of a beautiful life, a beautiful story. They're not taking away from it. They're not making it more stressful. And that goes with not just the kids, but for everyone in your life.
Right.
You know, really thinking about how you make them feel as a part of your life, that they're not an extra that's putting more tax on you, or that they're actually they're allowed into a space. They're allowed to take your space. But you also make sure that they don't drown you in them, you know, like be that emotional vampire. So I think it's a fine line, but as much as we can, we want to be in community with people. We don't want to have them be felt like they're extra, you know, or too much in our life. So, yeah.
And that they're adding really to your experience and you are to them. And it is really super collaborative in that sense, too.
Yeah. I mean, when I meet someone who I would call in my own head more difficult, because I don't typically spread that around if I feel that way about someone, but I will say mostly, what am I supposed to learn from this? I'm supposed to learn something from this. And sometimes it takes a while. And sometimes you have to choose to maybe not spend as much space until you get to a place where you can understand what this is for, because you have to protect yourself a bit. But I usually will say it that way. Like, I'm supposed to learn something from this human. And try to just figure that out as much as you can.
Staying open, though, right?
Yeah,
and the other thing that I think you do, and we've talked about this before, not in this discussion, but before, it's staying curious about other people, recognizing that for the most part, we think similarly about this, that people have good intentions.
Yeah.
Right. And that when it doesn't come off that way, usually it's for something having nothing to do with us.
Right. Right. Assuming positive intent, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a big one. Assuming that people are doing the very best they can with what they have.
Yeah.
Even if, and it's really hard right now with what's happening in our world, but I still have to think they think what they're doing is right. They think with what they've been given, with their history, with their family traumas, with everything they've been ever taught, they think they're doing the very best that they can, you know? And that's a really big one when you're trying to build a healthy culture at your workforce, that you can't have even one staff member that does not assume positive intent, or the whole thing goes under. If you have one person walking around saying, she did that to get me, she did that to make me look bad, you will lose the entire culture real quick. So that's a piece at David's Refuge that we have trained our staff on. We go over it. When we hear a blip of something outside of it, we bring it back to a training moment. It is a definite culture shift and will make or break your organization. Yeah.
So when you hear somebody doing something like that, so you do a preemptive training on it and the impact of it.
Yes.
Right. And then when you hear something happening, you come back in the room.
Immediately. Yeah. So it depends on the situation, but it's a course correction either on the spot. It's then followed up with a team setting approach where we reiterate the culture. And then it's an encouragement for a one-on-one. So that one person who is having the other issue, they need to sit down and talk. If they're not comfortable to do it together, I get involved in the conversation. But the team is so well trained now that they will go and talk to one another about it. Yeah. And it's usually a big story. You know, what comes out is usually that it was a story we were telling ourselves.
Oh.
This wasn't how it was intended. And I've had this specifically happen to me. I'm probably the biggest culprit in my team because I'm a very direct leader and I will just say things. So when I have newer staff come in, they don't understand that always. So I've learned as a leader to tell people who I am now. If I say it, it's black and white and there's no emotions attached to it. This is just how it is. And I will very often have to ask a person, well, how exactly did you experience what I said? And then let them talk. And I will then learn so much. Wow, you thought that when I asked for this, all these other things were happening, when really all I wanted was the report. It didn't mean that you failed. It didn't mean that I was judging you. It didn't mean I thought you didn't know how to do your job. I just wanted to see the numbers. So a lot of times as leaders, we just don't ask enough questions to understand where that's coming from. So then after you figure out the actual thing that's happening, the miscommunication, then you can reiterate the assuming positive intent. Okay, in this situation, you didn't assume positive intent for me, that I wouldn't actually call you out like that. I need you to, again, let's remember that always assuming positive intent. So if you're questioning it, bring it to me first before things unravel. Yeah. So that's kind of how we do it. Yeah.
So as a leader, you've brought in that, I mean, to me, that's it's a progressive, newer way of leading, through relationship, through connection, through engagement, so that you can have these much more emotionally vulnerable and open conversations.
Yeah.
What do you think in terms of like being a leader in an organization and then spinning off into Brave CNY? What do you think gave you that insight, like that knowledge to know how important that is?
So a lot of it was trial by fire, and just learning that each situation, like the assuming positive intent, was a staff member who we just had a really negative culture shift. And I had to start researching. So I would be going for walks and my big thing is TEDx. Sometimes I'll just be like, okay, positive culture, and I'll listen. And it's the same with reading, where you choose to see the world through someone else's eyes. And when you open a book, when you listen to a podcast like today, you're choosing to allow other information to come in, and you never really know how it's going to settle. You never know if it's going to be the biggest culture shift of your entire organization. So it started with, victim mindset stuff or different keywords that I was experiencing in the situation. I would just start to type them in. And then whatever would pop up, I would listen to it, and I would just start to take notes on it. And assuming positive intent came from that. The other big culture shift happened from, again, this said coach who asked me to do a stop, start, stay exercise with my staff. And he said, I want you to just have your staff meet in a room without you for an hour. And I want them to talk about all the things they want you to stop doing, all the things they want you to start doing, and all the things they want you to keep doing, to stay doing. And at first, I was like, you are crazy. I am not doing that, because they will say all this stuff about me, and I don't want. And then he looked at me and he was like, why? What I said before, why wouldn't you want to know what your staff think of you, Kate? And then I went and I had to do a lot of work, probably some tears, because I don't want them to know if I'm not perfect. No, all these things. And then about 2 weeks later, I said, of course I want them to do that.
Yeah.
Of course I want them to do that. And what also ended up happening is when you as a leader do that, you are opening up every feedback circle you could ever open up in your entire office. Because if you as the leader are willing to have them say anything to you, and they really were like, we can tell her anything. From Kate, we don't like your facial expressions.
Which was one of them, wasn't it?
That was the biggest.
Yes. Your nonverbals.
And what we learned from that is I can't necessarily always stop my facial expressions, but they are now allowed to call me out on it. So that's what came from that, is if we see you making a face, we're going to tell you, or we're going to ask you what you're making the face about.
Well, but that's a huge, I think, distinction, because it's not that you can't, they're not telling you this to say, stop making that face. Right. And you wouldn't be able to do that. Right. So it's saying, though, I am going to be aware of when I make that face because you can let me know, but then we can talk about what you're maybe interpreting from that face.
Yes. And that's really what. So it was multiple lines of communication opened as a result of that one bullet point. And now we laugh about it. We'll be in staff meeting and they're like, Kate, you're making the face. And I'll say, oh, it's because I actually just got an email from my kid's school. I mean, it has nothing to do. And so it's clarifying for them because they know it's not about them. And I think now we're even to a place where they know it's not about them.
Right.
Because they trust that if something's wrong, I'm going to pull them in. We're going to talk about it. So it wouldn't be a face I would make, you know? So I think that there's so many things. So that 360 was the stop, start, stay exercise was definitely a changing point, a game changer for the culture of David's Refuge and for everything I do. So I highly recommend it for everyone I coach and everything in between. Yeah.
It also sounds like a game changer for you.
Yeah.
Right? Like actually being more open. It's like ripping the doors off and saying, okay, let's just get real about the feedback cycle and how we're giving it and receiving it.
And I think we all say we want feedback, but then do you really?
Right.
If I were to say that, do this exercise. Sometimes leaders are more comfortable with doing that electronic 360. I don't feel like that did the same thing though, because when you have your staff all meet together, it's almost that crowd mentality. And I felt it was even more impactful on me because I knew they had all met together. It wasn't anonymous. It wasn't one person at a time giving feedback. I felt like if they had something to say, they felt comfortable enough to say it because they weren't afraid. They were together. And they all heard it together, and they all decided on the summary I got together. So I felt like it was even more impactful. Yeah.
Well, and I think, too, it sounds like you were at a point in your life where you really were feeling strong, feeling confident, and ready for it.
Yeah. And I needed it. When you are just in your leadership, you're saying, I definitely want to level up. I want to get to a whole new place with this. Then make sure the proof is in the actual actions that you take, right? So we can all say it, we can listen to things, we can do all these things, but there are definitely action steps, I think, that get you to a next place. And a lot of it has to do with the feedback and how you react to the feedback, right? So you cannot do this exercise and then put your staff down or be upset or treat them badly. You cannot. You can't. So you have to enter into it. And the other piece that I did is I asked my staff to compile it, and then I had a night to read it before they presented it to me. And I thought that was me not being a victim of it, making sure my reaction was going to be the way I wanted it to be, and giving me time to just process because we are humans and getting feedback is hard. So I just want to empower anyone who's thinking this might be hard for them, but worthwhile. Make sure you do it in a way that's going to be powerful for you and that you can be successful in it. You know? So, yeah.
Well, but it's the breaking it down into the how, right? And so getting it 24 hours ahead or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's not just a knee-jerk reaction.
Right.
Or that they're going to see your nonverbals as you read it. And I think the same goes the other way. When you're giving employee feedback, right? Having them read that right in front of you, you're getting initial reactions.
Yeah, so true. So
right?
true.
Which is why everybody hates them.
And then if we take this into a personal scope, you know, what I said before, all these things, this is where I want to now take this into my personal life.
Yeah.
You know, I don't give my kids 24 hours to process something that I'm trying to mandate in our home or all these things. So this is now the next step for me. Is I want to make sure that Kate is Kate is Kate is Kate. And that is the one bucket that vulnerably, I'm telling you, I'm still, like, I got to work on. I still have to work on that piece. And I guess this is a great starting point today, you know, to really open it up and say, I want to be able to do better and maybe need to write some things down and really think about how I can implement it on every front. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds to me, though, like you said a couple of minutes ago, that this isn't the life that you thought you would have. So 2 things. One, I'm really curious about the life that you thought you were going to have. And then the other thing is, where do you think you're going from here?
Yeah. I definitely thought that I would travel and when I studied abroad, it put something in me. I love being in other countries and meeting other cultures. And I definitely thought I would live in other places and just sort of hop around the world. I really thought that's who I would be. And I didn't have a career path that I always thought I was going to do this. Mm-hmm. So my life was pretty open at that point. And then I met Paul. And we met at SUNY Cortland, and then he was from the Syracuse area, wanted to be a teacher, and he did get a position at East Syracuse Manoa. And we have been in Syracuse for the last 20 years. So I didn't even consider that I would definitely be a mother when I was even in college. I didn't think all of those things. I just really was open to what would happen next. Mm-hmm. I've never been attached to building a life around financial success. I always just had this thought of being content and happy. So it was more, I think I want to live in Australia for a while. And then I think even my brother's wedding, I did the speech and I talked about maybe coming and living with them for a bit because I knew he was going to be all wickedly uber successful. And I was like, I'll come live with you because I'm not sure where I'm going to be, but I'm going to be traveling the world, you know? So I just never, until meeting, you meet this person then and you're like, oh, now I could see that. I could see having a married life and I could see having kids. And then I got into the nonprofit sector when I was looking for positions because he was here. And that's when I started at the MDA, and I was there 10 years, and then David's Refuge for the last 10. So that's really been it. And that's how I got into nonprofit. So it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's like you allowed the story to write itself.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Just open to, I guess I talk a lot about doors and windows. Like I'm open to meeting the next right person. And that's what I keep telling my kids as they age. I'm like, you'll meet people that will help you open new doors or see a door you didn't know existed. I think that goes back to Liz and how life-changing that event was for me. And I now want to impart on them so that they know that they literally cannot write their story today. They cannot decide on a college and think that it's going to be this certain way. They have to let all of it unfold. Steve Jobs did a speech and he talked about his life and how he took a calligraphy course at college. And he had a really troubled experience in life and challenging. And he ended up taking calligraphy. And then he said, if he looks back, that was the reason and kind of the starting point and the catalyst for creating font.
Wow.
So, like, would he have ever? And he said, so if I tried to, like, write my story this way, I could have never done it. But now looking back, that was the reason I had to take that course. And we hear this from every success story out there, either success through happiness, time in your life, autonomy, the family you've always dreamt of, financial success, whatever it means for you. We hear that all the time, is that you can't write your story. You have to let life unfold for you. You have to be very intentional. But it will start to unfold in the way that it's supposed to, you know, and trusting in that. So when you ask where I'm going, honestly, let's keep it broken down into this beautiful day-to-day vision I have. But I do know that I want to keep impacting lives. I know that we're starting to see a much bigger picture unfold for David's Refuge, in that there's so many families to support. There's so many stories to tell of what caregivers are going through. So I really do want to stay focused on the opportunity that lies ahead for David's Refuge and the beauty that is around that mission. It is like no other. Mm-hmm. And you're so involved with it and have created so many new doors opening. So let's just keep doing that.
For listeners, do you want to share just a little bit about David's Refuge and the organization?
Yeah, so we were created in 2012 by a mom and dad from Manlius, New York. And our mission is all about supporting moms and dads who have children with special needs or life-threatening medical conditions. We want to empower them in their journey so that they can lead their families with strength and grace. We provide respite services, mental health counseling support services, wellness programming, and community events. And we've been doing this in this community. We serve over 1,000 families here, and we're starting to be able to look at ways to grow it outside of this community too, to offer it to more and more people. So it's very exciting.
And you, I think, you are the face of David's Refuge. And I think among many, but it's that energy and that passion and the authenticity that you bring to it, where I think that the parents and caregivers know that they are cared for, they are seen by you, by your staff, the ability to connect.
Yeah, we had a person that came into our office, Sherry Fryer. She came in to visit. She knew David. And she was telling the story of David as a younger teenage male, typically wouldn't be like the most exuberant in the crowd. And he used to scream her name, Mrs. Fryer, and run over. And she said he made everyone feel like a rock star. Everyone. And even though he was, losing his vision and going through this genetic disorder and all these things, and it really made me stop and think and say, that is what we strive to be at David's Refuge, that everyone that walks through the office door, that everyone who comes to an event, everyone who's served by the mission feels like a rock star, feels like they are truly and genuinely seen. And the more and more we do that, it's like you just want to do more of it. You just want to be in new communities so people can feel that love. And I think that's what we're really, it's nice to know that it attaches to our namesake himself. And that's how David made people feel. So it's just beautiful. Yeah, it was neat to hear that.
I love that.
I know.
I mean, it's the who and the how.
Who and the how. That could be the theme.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's so pervasive. And I think the more stories I hear, right, about, and the whole reason I wanted to do this show was to give people like you the chance to share how the stories that you experienced growing up throughout your life, how you've integrated them into your sense of self, into your own identity, because really it truly is about connecting outward. And so for the direct people that you impact in your life, the listeners who may find something that is relatable to them and what we're sharing, or, the way that the life, goes not directly from point A to B, but throughout all of these twists and turns in between, it's really recognizing that it's the stories that shape us that create these opportunities, right? So I'm glad you're not going to really have an answer for that, where you're going, because it is true. It's like you're going to trust yourself, and you're going to trust the story to continue to evolve.
Yeah, I do love that you're okay with that answer, because I think in some respects, a lot of humans are not able to be okay with that answer and think, now don't get me wrong, I'm an extremely goal-driven person. I know what at the essence of my life I want to be. I know what I want to accomplish in this life. And so much of that is this beautiful life I've been able to create so far, and how it opens the doors I need it to open, how I have a loving and respectful husband and marriage, and how much I see that because we're going the same direction, him and I, how much we can accomplish, how many people we can support, how we can raise our kids together as a united front, and then create something in this world because we were able to do that. So a lot of it is cause and effect for me, So I know that David's Refuge will thrive. I know that Brave CNY will continue to thrive. And I'll be able to and get to work with more and more clients because I'm leading it for the right reasons. I go into each meeting knowing all I want to do is impact you today. I want you to be a better version of yourself or think differently about a situation. So if you approach it like that and not, I hope to be rich someday.
Right.
I think you just get a much more fulfilled version of all the things you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Yeah.
Well, and I think that that's why people seek you out, right? And for anyone listening, where can they find more information about you for Brave CNY, for David's Refuge?
Yeah.
How can they track you down?
I'm sure I'm on the Google. No, David's Refuge is davidsrefuge.org, and they can get all sorts of information on our website to apply for services if you are a caregiver. or just to learn how to volunteer or be a part of the mission, we will be honoring this very special woman, Melissa, and her husband at our big upcoming event. So you can check that out. We also, I also have a website for Brave CNY, so just bravecny.com, and you can do a contact form there if you're interested in learning more about that. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
I mean,
you.
and so it's the who, right? It's the how.
Always.
It's the living with intentional, thought process. And I think you've got now the word for your own gravestone that you can think about in your walks through the cemetery.
I'm going to experience.
She's truly lived.
Yeah. Ooh,
Yeah.
That's profound. There you go.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on.